At 2:17 in the morning, Emily's phone lit up on the nightstand. Ethan's name appeared on the screen. The man she had promised to wait for, no matter how long he stayed overseas. A few feet away, his older brother Jason stood beside the window, silently buttoning his shirt. Emily watched the phone vibrate. Answering would force her to say what she had done. Letting it ring would say it for her. 3 months earlier, she could not have imagined herself in that room. Emily was 30, Ethan was 32, and they had been together for almost 4 years. They shared a cramped apartment in Ohio with unreliable heating, thin walls, and a kitchen table covered in envelopes they were afraid to open. Every month, whatever remained after rent and bills went into a savings account for their first home. At least, that was what Emily believed. One evening, Ethan came home carrying a box from an expensive bakery. His eyes were brighter than she had seen them in months. "I got the job," he announced. "The one in Germany. They're offering me almost 3 times what I make here." For one hopeful moment, Emily pictured their debts disappearing. Then she asked when they were leaving. Ethan's smile weakened. "We aren't. The company only covers 1 employee. But it's temporary. 6 months. Maybe a year." He spoke as if he were leaving for a short business trip, not moving across an ocean while she remained responsible for their apartment and the joint loan that carried both their names. Emily did not simply agree. She opened a notebook and made him sit at the kitchen table. Together they listed the rent, loan payment, utilities, and the amount he would send each month. Ethan signed the page as a joke. "You make it look like a contract," he said. "I need to know I can survive this." He promised she would never have to worry. 2 weeks later, at the airport, Ethan held her tightly and repeated the same words. "This is for us." For the first month, Emily believed him. He sent photographs of narrow streets, bright storefronts, and the apartment he shared with a coworker. He talked about his manager, his new friends, and the car he wanted to buy. Gradually, one word disappeared from his plans: us. Their nightly calls became short messages. Then even those became rare. When rent was due, Ethan transferred less than half the amount written in Emily's notebook. "Everything costs more here," he said. "You managed before. You'll figure it out." Emily tried. She worked at the front desk of a beauty salon and asked for every extra shift available. She met with the salon owner about an assistant manager opening, created a stricter budget, and called the lender to request a temporary hardship plan. When automatic payments emptied the joint account and caused an overdraft, she opened a separate checking account in her own name. Her paycheck still barely covered the essentials. Some afternoons, she skipped lunch because she needed gas to get to work. Meanwhile, Ethan posted pictures from restaurants. Each photograph made the distance between them feel less like a sacrifice and more like abandonment. Then Jason called. At 36, Ethan's older brother looked enough like him that strangers sometimes confused them. The resemblance ended when a problem appeared. Ethan promised to handle things later. Jason usually arrived with tools. He owned a small construction company, drove a black SUV, and lived alone in a modern downtown apartment. Technically, he was still married. Emily had met his wife, Sarah, twice at family holidays years earlier. But Sarah and their son now lived in Columbus while she cared for her father. Ethan's family said the marriage had been over for more than a year. Jason called it a separation and changed the subject whenever anyone asked about a divorce. "Ethan asked me to check on you," Jason said. Emily nearly laughed. Ethan had not asked how she was doing in weeks. "I'm fine," she lied. The following morning, the water heater stopped working. The landlord refused to pay for repairs, and the technician quoted a price Emily could not afford. She was at the kitchen table with cold coffee and 3 rejected loan emails when someone knocked. Jason stood in the hallway holding a toolbox. "How did you know?" she asked. "Your neighbor called my mother. News travels fast in this family." He spent nearly 2 hours repairing the heater. When Emily asked what she owed him, he shook his head. "Nothing. I don't need charity." "Then call it a favor from family." Jason began checking on her every few days. Sometimes he brought groceries and claimed his mother had bought too much. When the landlord threatened an illegal rent increase, Emily had already printed the relevant lease section before Jason arrived. He made one phone call, but she was the one who sent the written complaint that stopped it. With Jason nearby, she no longer had to solve every problem alone. That relief was dangerous because it felt like trust. Ethan noticed none of it. On Emily's birthday, he forgot to call. She stayed late at the salon to help close, then returned home to a small cake she had bought for herself. At 12:15 a.m., a message finally arrived. It was not an apology. It was a photograph of Ethan at a crowded party, smiling with one arm around a woman Emily had never seen. Beneath it, he had written, "She's from work. Don't make this into something." Emily had not accused him of anything. His defense had arrived before her question. A minute later, the doorbell rang. Jason stood outside holding a wrapped gift. He looked at Emily's face and asked, "What did my brother do?" She handed him the phone. Jason studied the photograph, then placed a silver key on the table. "What's that?" "The key to an apartment my company renovated. It's furnished, empty, and paid through the end of the year. Stay there while you decide what you want." Taking it would mean leaving the home she had shared with Ethan. It would also mean accepting more than a repaired heater or a bag of groceries from his brother. Emily closed her fingers around the key anyway. That choice did not make her a cheater. Not yet. But it opened the door to a betrayal that would break two relationships and expose the competition between two brothers who had been keeping score long before Emily understood she was part of the game. The first lie Emily told Ethan was only 4 words long. "I'm still at home." She sent the message while standing in Jason's apartment, surrounded by moving boxes that proved otherwise. The place was on the 10th floor of a new building, with quiet rooms and wide windows overlooking the city. The refrigerator was full. The lights worked. Hot water came instantly. Jason carried in the last box and placed it beside the couch. "You can stay until December," he said. "No rent. No pressure. I'll pay something. The company already covered it." "That doesn't mean I want to owe you." Jason studied her. "Then use the money you're saving to get out of the loan you share with Ethan." That evening, Ethan called. Jason was in the kitchen putting away groceries. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked. "Nothing. Watching television." "Everything okay at the apartment?" Emily looked through the doorway. Jason had stopped moving. "Everything's fine." It was the first time she deliberately hid Jason from Ethan. The lie frightened her, but it also gave her a sense of control she had not felt since Ethan left. Ethan spent the next 10 minutes talking about himself. His manager liked him. His co-workers had invited him on a weekend trip. He was thinking about extending his contract. "For how long?" Emily asked. "Maybe another year." "You said 6 months." "I said 6 months, maybe a year. And now you're describing 2. Ethan sighed. "This is a huge opportunity. I thought you'd be happy for me. I can barely afford groceries while you're planning weekend trips." "It's networking. Was the woman in my birthday photo networking too?" His voice turned cold. "I told you not to start with that." Someone called his name in the background. Ethan ended the conversation without asking how Emily had spent her birthday, or why her apartment sounded so quiet. Jason brought her a cup of tea. "He's staying longer, isn't he?" Emily nodded. "He expects me to put everything on hold while he decides whether I'm still part of his future. My brother has always believed people will wait for him. Maybe someone should prove him wrong." Jason did not answer. The look he gave her was not brotherly, and they both knew it. During the next few weeks, Emily used the break from rent to pay overdue bills and build an emergency fund. She followed up about the assistant manager position and began training new receptionists so she would qualify for the next opening. Jason kept finding reasons to visit, and Emily eventually stopped pretending the dinners were about repairs. Ethan grew more distant. When he finally called, he complained that she sounded different. "You don't miss me anymore," he said. "You told me to manage without you. I'm learning." She began posting carefully framed photographs without revealing where she lived. The downtown view, a restaurant table, a bouquet of white roses Jason sent after the salon owner praised her work. Ethan responded within minutes. "Who bought you those flowers?" Emily could have told him. Instead, she typed, "Someone who remembered." He called immediately. She declined. That night, Jason came over with dessert and a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold necklace. "This is too much," Emily said. "Then don't accept it." "You knew I would." "No, I hoped you would." Jason did not touch her. He lifted the necklace and asked, "May I?" Emily hesitated, then turned around. He fastened the chain carefully, his fingers brushing the back of her neck for only a second. The moment was restrained, but its meaning was not. Then Ethan called. Jason told her to answer. "I need the truth," Ethan said. "Where are you living?" "Why are you asking?" "Because I spoke to the landlord. He said you moved out 3 weeks ago." Emily's hand closed around the necklace. She could invent another lie, but the first one had already grown too large. "I'm living in your brother's apartment." Ethan went silent. Ethan's first question was not why Emily had moved. "How long have you been sleeping with him?" "I'm not sleeping with anyone," Emily said. "Jason gave me somewhere to stay because you left me with bills I couldn't pay. You moved into his apartment and hid it from me. You stopped caring where I lived. That isn't an answer. It's the answer you don't want." Ethan demanded that she return to their old apartment. "The lease is ending," Emily said. "I gave notice because I couldn't keep paying for a home you abandoned. I'll send money." "You've said that before. I'm serious now, because another man helped me." "Not another man. My brother." Emily heard the fear beneath his anger, and part of her was satisfied. She had wanted him to feel uncertain. Now that he did, she understood that she had begun using Jason not only for help, but as a weapon. Ethan demanded to speak to him. Jason took the phone. She needed somewhere to live. Ethan's voice rose through the speaker. "No, I didn't ask your permission," Jason continued. "You stopped sending what you promised. You forgot her birthday. Now you're offended because someone noticed?" He looked directly at Emily before adding, "If you were here, she wouldn't need me." Jason ended the call. "You made him think there's something between us," Emily said. "Isn't there?" She touched the necklace. "You're Ethan's brother. You're also still married, even if everyone calls it a separation." Jason's expression tightened. "Sarah and I have lived apart for more than a year. She built a life in Columbus. I live here. That isn't the same as a divorce. The marriage ended before the paperwork did." Emily wanted to believe him, because believing him kept the choice simple. She turned toward the window. Jason had given her a safe apartment. Ethan had given her promises. Neither fact answered what she owed herself or either man. "I don't know what I want," she said. "Then I won't pressure you." Jason left, and Emily spent the night building a budget for January, when the apartment would no longer be free. She searched rental listings, calculated what a management salary might cover, and wrote down a rule she had already broken. Do not make a permanent decision because of temporary anger. The next morning, 17 missed calls from Ethan covered her screen. His messages shifted from apology to suspicion. The final one said, "I booked a flight. I'm coming next week." For months, Emily had begged him to visit. Jealousy accomplished in one evening what her fear had not accomplished in 3 months. Ethan's mother called that afternoon. "Tell me this is a misunderstanding. Jason is helping me, that's all. Jason is still married. Whatever he says about Sarah, don't let my sons turn you into another contest between them." The warning landed because Emily knew it was fair. She also resented hearing it from a family that had spent a year describing Jason's marriage as finished whenever his absence from holidays became awkward. That evening, Jason was waiting outside the salon. "My mother called you," he said when Emily got into the SUV. "She reminded me that you have a wife. A separated wife." "Then show me the divorce filing." Jason's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Sarah asked me to wait until her father's health stabilized. I agreed because of our son." It was an explanation, but not proof. At the apartment, Emily told him Ethan was returning. "You could go back to him," Jason said. "And if I don't? You can stay here until the lease ends. After that, I'll help you find something." "Why are you doing this?" Jason answered quietly. "Because I've watched my brother receive loyalty he never earned." "That's not the whole reason." "No." Emily stepped closer. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing you don't choose to give." She thought about Ethan's photo with Lauren, the ignored calls, and the sudden flight booked only after Jason became a threat. She also thought about the silver key, the free apartment, and the fear of losing both. Her next choice was not confusion. It was anger, attraction, and revenge mixed together. When Jason kissed her, Emily did not pull away. The moment was brief. it still changed the meaning of every favor and every lie that had brought them there. Afterward, Jason opened the balcony door to let in cold air. They stepped outside, believing the courtyard 10 floors below was empty. Emily's phone vibrated. A message from Ethan read, "No need to explain. I saw enough." Attached was a photograph of Emily and Jason standing close together on the balcony, the necklace bright against her dark shirt. The image had been taken from the parking structure beside the building less than a minute earlier. Someone had not been watching for weeks. Someone had arrived that night, seen exactly what Ethan feared, and pressed the camera button once. Emily enlarged the photograph. A timestamp appeared in the corner. Jason looked at it once and swore under his breath. "Who had a reason to be in that garage?" she asked. Jason's phone rang before he could answer. The caller was Ryan, their cousin and one of Jason's project supervisors. Jason put him on speaker. "Ethan asked me to pick up his tax files from the storage locker in your building," Ryan said. "I was already coming by for the Riverside plans. He told me Emily might be there and asked me to confirm it." "So you photographed us?" Emily asked. Ryan sounded ashamed. "I saw you on the balcony. I sent one picture. I shouldn't have." "Were you waiting for us to kiss?" "No. I was in the garage for maybe 10 minutes. Ethan kept calling. I wanted out of the middle, so I gave him proof and left." It did not excuse Ryan, but there was no elaborate scheme or hidden observer. He had been in the wrong place, made one bad choice, and collided with a chain of others. Ethan called next. "One kiss happened tonight," Emily told him before he could accuse her. "I won't lie about that." "You expect me to believe it began tonight?" "No. The secrecy began when I moved. The emotional line moved every time I used Jason to make you jealous. The kiss happened tonight." Ethan's anger gave way to a colder tone. "I'll be home tomorrow." "You said next week." "I changed the flight." The following day, Emily asked Jason to stay away. She worked her full shift, toured a studio apartment she could barely afford, and told Madison, a coworker she trusted, enough of the truth to ask whether her couch might be available for one night. "It is," Madison said, "but you need to stop choosing between brothers as if those are your only options." At 7 that evening, Ethan knocked on the apartment door with a suitcase beside him. He looked exhausted. His eyes went first to the necklace. "Did he buy that too?" "Yes. I worked overseas to build us a future, and you replaced me in 3 months." "You built a future that kept changing whenever I asked where I belonged in it." Inside, the full kitchen and expensive view made Ethan angrier. "Was this all it took? A nicer apartment and someone to pay your bills?" The accusation hurt because it was not entirely false. "Comfort influenced me," Emily said. "So did being ignored. Neither one excuses the kiss." Ethan opened messages from Lauren, the woman in the birthday photograph. Lauren had invited him out more than once. Ethan had refused her each time. The final message read, "Your girlfriend is lucky. Most men here don't talk about someone back home as much as you do." "I didn't cheat on you," Ethan said. "You still stopped acting like my partner. And Jason made sure you believed I had abandoned you completely." He showed her a conversation with his brother from 2 months earlier. Emily recognized the date. It was 3 days after she stopped using the overdrawn joint account and began routing her paycheck into the new account Ethan could not access. Ethan had written, "The joint account will swallow the transfer and overdraft fees. Can I send you $800? Give it to her tonight. I don't want the rent late again." Jason replied, "Send it through the business app. I'll take care of her." The payment receipt appeared below the message. "I sent it through him because I didn't have your new bank details," Ethan said. "Jason told me you refused the money and that he used it for the landlord. He never offered it to me." The apartment door unlocked. Jason entered carrying a grocery bag and stopped when he saw Ethan. Emily held up the phone. "Where is the $800? Jason placed the bag on the counter. "I used some of it for the move and the groceries. The rest is in my account." "You said the apartment and groceries were your help." "They were." "You let me thank you for things Ethan partly paid for." Jason's silence answered her. "Why didn't you give me the money?" "Because you would have used it to keep waiting for him." "That was my decision." "I gave you something better." Emily looked around the apartment. The view, the food, the necklace, all the evidence of Jason's generosity now looked like pieces of a controlled environment. Ethan stepped closer to his brother. "Tell her about Germany." Jason's calm expression disappeared. "What about Germany?" Emily asked. Ethan kept his eyes on Jason. "The recruiter worked for one of his business partners. Jason recommended me for a job he knew I couldn't resist." "It was a real job," Jason said. "It was also on another continent." Jason had not forced Ethan to leave. He had placed the perfect opportunity in front of his ambitious brother and let distance do the rest. "How long have you wanted this?" Emily asked. Jason looked from her to Ethan. "Since before the two of you moved in together." The confession changed every family dinner Emily remembered. Jason had not suddenly developed feelings after Ethan left. He had been waiting for a weakness in their relationship and quietly helping it widen. "You could have told me," Emily said. "You were happy. So you waited until I wasn't." "I waited until he stopped appreciating you." Ethan gave a bitter laugh. "You helped make sure she believed that." "I didn't forget her birthday," Jason replied. "I didn't ignore her calls while she skipped meals." "And the money?" Jason had no defense for that. Emily removed the necklace and placed it on the counter. "You didn't rescue me. You limited the choices I could see. I gave you a place to breathe. Then you charged me with gratitude and never named the price." Jason's voice sharpened. "I never forced you to do anything." "That's true," Emily said. "You manipulated me, but I chose to lie. I chose the posts, the necklace, and the kiss. I won't hand you responsibility for decisions that were mine." Neither brother expected that answer. Emily turned to Ethan. "You didn't cheat with Lauren. I believe that now. But you broke our agreement, stopped sending what you promised, and expected me to remain available while every plan became about you." "Come to the hotel with me," Ethan said. "We can start over. Are you staying in Ohio?" His pause was enough. "My contract isn't finished. I have to go back for a few months." "And after that?" "There may be another position." Jason shook his head. "You crossed an ocean to claim her, and you're already planning to leave again. Stay out of this." "No," Emily said. "He is right about that." Jason had not invented Ethan's selfishness. Ethan still wanted his career in Germany and the certainty that Emily would be waiting in Ohio. "I never cheated on you," Ethan said. "I did," Emily replied. "One kiss is enough. The reasons explain it. They don't erase it." Pain replaced the anger in Ethan's face. Emily had once imagined satisfaction in making him feel replaced. Seeing the result left her ashamed of how deliberately she had chased it. Ethan picked up his suitcase. "I hope the apartment was worth it." At the door, he looked at Jason. "You didn't win. You only spent more." When Ethan left, Emily opened her rental listings. The cheapest acceptable studio required a deposit she did not yet have. Madison's couch was available, but Emily knew what leaving would cost. Comfort, space, and the illusion that someone powerful would solve the next problem. Jason stood across the room. "You can stay. Nothing has to change tonight." "Everything changed when I saw those messages. I lied about the money, but I never lied about wanting you. And Sarah? That marriage is over. I will prove it. You've had more than a year to file. I'll call the lawyer tomorrow." Emily heard the same language Ethan used. Tomorrow, after the contract, when the timing was right. She recognized the warning and stayed anyway. This was the decision for which she could blame no one else. "Until December," she said. "After that I leave, whether you help me or not." Jason stepped closer. "And us?" Emily picked up the necklace and held it out. "Put it back on." He fastened it without speaking. Later, a glass of wine tipped during another argument and splashed across Jason's shirt. He changed in the bedroom while Emily closed the curtains and silenced the messages still arriving from Ethan. At 2:17 in the morning, her phone lit up on the nightstand. Ethan's name appeared on the screen. A few feet away, Jason stood beside the window, silently buttoning a clean shirt. The scene Emily had once been unable to imagine had finally become real. This time, she did not pretend that failing to answer was indecision. She let the call end, then sent Ethan one message. "I chose to stay. What I did was wrong, and our relationship is over. I won't ask you to wait for me." The message showed as read. No reply came. By morning, the closed curtains, the necklace, and Jason's presence left no doubt that Emily's betrayal had gone beyond a single impulsive kiss. Even though neither of them needed to describe the night for its consequence to be clear, Ethan boarded his return flight to Germany. At 9, someone knocked. Jason was in the shower. Emily opened the door and recognized Sarah immediately. She looked older than at the last family holiday, but there was no mistaking her. Their 8-year-old son stood beside her holding a backpack. "Sarah?" Sarah's eyes moved to the necklace and then into the apartment. "Jason said you moved to Columbus because the marriage was over," Emily said. "We lived apart for 7 weeks last year," Sarah replied. "We've been in counseling for 6 months. He spent last weekend at our house telling our son he was coming home." Emily's hand rose to the necklace. The surprise was not that Jason had a wife. It was that he had never truly left her. The bathroom door opened behind Emily. Jason stepped into the hallway, saw Sarah and his son, and stopped. For the first time since Emily had known him, he had no calm answer prepared. "Why are you here?" he asked. Sarah gave a tired laugh. "That's your first question." Jason looked at Emily. "We were separated." "For 7 weeks," Sarah said. "Then you asked to come home. We have counseling appointments, family weekends, and messages from you promising we were rebuilding." She asked their son to wait near the elevator with a game on her phone. Once he was out of hearing range, Sarah stepped inside. "A friend saw you two at dinner," she said. "Then I checked the accounts. Jason bought a necklace, paid for furniture, and kept an apartment he told me we were preparing to sell. Jason's construction company was successful, but Sarah owned half of it. Her father had provided the original investment, and the downtown apartment was a company asset. Jason had presented shared property as if it belonged to him alone. "Nothing happened until last night," Jason said. Sarah looked at the necklace. "Something happened when you began spending our money to build a secret life." Emily removed the necklace and placed it beside the silver key. "She's right." "Emily, let me explain. You told me the marriage had been over for more than a year. You let your family repeat that story because it made your weekends in Columbus look like visits with your son. Sarah and I were unhappy. Then you should have ended the marriage honestly." "I was going to." The phrase sounded exactly like Ethan's promises about money and returning home. Jason reached for Emily's hand. She stepped back. "You wanted honesty from me while you controlled every truth I received." Sarah looked at Emily. "Did you know he was legally married?" "Yes. I believed they were separated and waiting to file because of your father and your son. You believed the version that made staying easier." Emily did not argue. "Yes, I should have asked you before I crossed the line. I'm sorry." Sarah did not offer forgiveness, and Emily did not request it. "What you do now matters," Sarah said, "but it doesn't erase what you chose before I arrived." The words were harsher than comfort and more useful than another excuse. Emily packed her belongings. Jason followed her to the bedroom. "Where will you go?" "Madison's couch tonight. After that, I'll find a room." "You can't afford it." "Then I will work more hours and live somewhere smaller." "I love you." Weeks earlier, Emily had wanted those words. Now she understood how little they meant without truth. "You arranged Ethan's job, kept his money, and made me dependent on you. You didn't want a free choice. You wanted every other choice to feel impossible." Jason insisted he could file for divorce that week. "File because your marriage is over," Emily said. "Don't file because you think it will make me stay." She closed her suitcase, placed the apartment key beside the necklace, and left. At Madison's apartment, Emily called Ethan. He answered from an airport lounge in Germany. "Jason called me 6 times, he said. "What happened?" "Sarah came to the apartment. They weren't separated the way he claimed." Ethan was silent. "I knew they were talking again. I didn't know he was promising to move home." "Your family made it easy not to ask questions. I made it easier by believing what suited me. I warned you about him after you ignored me for months. But this isn't a competition over who hurt me more. Jason manipulated me. You abandoned our agreement. I cheated on you because I wanted revenge and security. That part belongs to me." Ethan offered to reject the extension and return to Ohio. Months earlier, Emily would have begged for that promise. Now it sounded like another decision made only after he felt control slipping away. "Come home if Ohio is the life you want," she said. Don't come back to recover a person you expected to keep waiting. And Jason, there is no Jason in me. Is there still in us? No. We stopped being partners before I cheated, and my cheating ended whatever was left. For once, neither of them tried to win the argument. I'm sorry, Ethan said. So am I. The following morning, Emily applied for a management opening at another salon location. She opened a savings account, documented every joint loan payment, and asked a legal aid office how to separate her liability from Ethan's. These actions did not feel as dramatic as receiving a silver key. They were slower, less comfortable, and entirely her own. The epilogue of Emily's story was not glamorous. She rented a small studio above a pharmacy. Its narrow kitchen faced a parking lot, but every bill carried her name. During the first winter, the heater failed. Emily called the landlord, documented the problem, and arranged the repair without calling either brother. The solution was ordinary, which was exactly why it mattered. She earned the management position, rebuilt her savings, and made Ethan legally responsible for his share of the loan. She bought furniture one piece at a time, choosing a used table over another month of debt. The apartment never looked impressive in photographs. It felt peaceful in a way Jason's view never had. Sarah filed for divorce. The financial review uncovered other expenses Jason had hidden, proving Emily was not the first person to receive gifts disguised as generosity. That discovery did not make Emily innocent. It only confirmed the pattern she had entered. Jason sent apologies, explanations, and promises that he was changing. Emily never answered. Ethan finished his German contract, rejected the extension, and returned to Ohio for a less prestigious job near his family. Almost a year later, he visited the salon with proof that he had paid the rest of his loan balance. "I should have done it sooner," he said. "Yes." He looked around her office. "You did well. Do you think we could ever try again?" Emily remembered the life they had planned before resentment replaced partnership. She also remembered the person she had become while trying to make him regret leaving. "I think losing us forced both of us to stop blaming someone else for every choice," she said. "That doesn't mean we should rebuild the same relationship." Ethan accepted the answer and left. When Emily opened her desk drawer, she found the silver key. It had slipped into a pocket on the night she packed. She held it for a moment, remembering how easily comfort had resembled love and how quickly help had become dependence. Then she dropped it into the trash and returned to work. She had wanted Ethan to regret leaving her. She had wanted Jason to prove she was worth choosing. In the end, neither brother gave Emily the life she needed. She built it herself.